In Tasting the Sky, A Palestinian Childhood, 2007, Palestinian-American author and poet Ibtisam Barakat recounts her early childhood in Palestine, deeply affected by the events of the Six-Day War of 1967. Through a blend of evocative prose and free verse poetry, Barakat shares the painful losses she experienced during this tumultuous time, from the loss of her home and security to the shattering of her childhood innocence. Written from a child's perspective, her narrative goes beyond politics, offering a poignant portrayal of how war disrupts the lives of ordinary people. Despite these hardships, Ibtisam finds emotional healing and self-expression through education and writing. Today, she is an educator, writer, and advocate for peace. Ibtisam has represented her community as a delegate to the Third UN Conference on the Elimination of Racism, participated in numerous peace initiatives, and now leads seminars seeking a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Her story begins in 1981 when Ibtisam, at 17 years old, visits her post office box, her soul linked to the outside world through letters from international pen pals. Afterward, Israeli soldiers stop her bus, and as the passengers are detained, Ibtisam wonders whether her home in Ramallah is still standing. She reflects on her fiercely protective mother, her loving but troubled father, and the fear and uncertainty of living under Israeli occupation. Although her mother urges her to forget the painful past, Ibtisam chooses to remember. A flashback to 1967 brings Ibtisam back to when she was just 3.5 years old, living in a small home on a hill outside Ramallah with her parents, her idolized father, Suleiman, her mother, Miriam, and her siblings, 6-year-old Basil, 5-year-old Muhammad, and infant Maha. One night, her father urgently announces the start of the war. The family joins a stream of terrified villagers fleeing to Jordan, but in the chaos, Ibtisam, struggling with one shoe on, is left behind. She follows strangers through the war-torn night, loses her shoe, and injures her feet. Eventually, she reunites with her family, and they cross into Jordan, where the trauma of being abandoned lingers. Mother and the children take refuge in a shelter until the war ends, and later, they stay with a fellow refugee, Hamameh, while her father searches for work. During this time, Ibtisam receives medical treatment for her injured feet. Concerned for their safety, her mother moves them to a shelter in a school, where she teaches Ibtisam the Arabic letter Alef, which becomes a comforting friend to the young girl. Eventually, the family returns to Ramallah, only to find that Israeli forces are using the hill outside their home for military training. Despite this, her mother insists they leave once again. Ibtisam's mother places the children in an orphanage and lives there herself, working and studying. Ibtisam and her brothers are miserable in the orphanage, and Ibtisam feels utterly isolated when the boys are sent to a separate facility for fighting. Meanwhile, her father works to make their home safer so they can return. When they do, Ibtisam is overjoyed and feels a sense of freedom. She and her brothers gradually become accustomed to the presence of Israeli soldiers, playing with bullet casings and in the soldiers' trenches. They also cherish their beloved baby goat, Zuraik, whom their father has promised never to kill. Ibtisam's mother begins a sewing business, which brings people to their home, while the boys start school. Ibtisam misses them during the day, but she later learns their lessons on her own. Her father, a devout Muslim, announces that the boys must be circumcised. The family travels to their ancestral villages to announce the upcoming celebration. One of their stops is to visit Grandma Fatima, a refugee from the 1948 war. Ibtisam and her brothers are devastated when their father decides to slaughter Zuraik to provide meat for the circumcision feast. The trauma of losing their goat and the betrayal of their father's lie weigh heavily on them. The children also struggle to understand what circumcision means, and Ibtisam is horrified when it is forcibly done to her brothers during the celebration. Ibtisam begins first grade at the Jalazon Girls' School. Her mother, who regrets not having finished her own education, encourages Ibtisam to excel and be the best in her class. Ibtisam's teacher, Lillian, notices that Ibtisam already knows the material and enlists her help in teaching the other students. Though Ibtisam enjoys school, she feels deep sympathy for her classmates from the Jalazon refugee camp, who live in dire poverty and unsanitary conditions. One day, after being assaulted by an older boy on her way home, Ibtisam refuses to walk alone again. In late 1970, after the death of Egyptian leader Nasser, Israeli military presence intensifies. Soldiers come to their home and sexually threaten her mother. Fearing for their safety, the family is forced to relocate once more. Ibtisam is heartbroken to leave the only place she has felt at home, unsure if they will ever return. The narrative then returns to 1981, where Ibtisam reflects on her childhood. Although the pain of those losses still lingers, she is grateful for the memories. She ends her story with a poem dedicated to Alef, the letter her mother taught her. The power of language and writing, symbolized by Alef, has helped Ibtisam heal emotionally and offers hope for peace. The Square Fish edition of Tasting the Sky includes additional content such as a historical note, a map, an annotated list of further resources, a recipe, a conversational guide to Arabic, and a section with questions for the author. Ibtisam's companion memoir, Balcony on the Moon, Coming of Age in Palestine 2016, picks up where Tasting the Sky leaves off, following Ibtisam from childhood into adolescence. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.